Hey friends, it's Jamie. I'm coming on here to talk about Uranus moving into Gemini. I thought it was important to make this video for multiple reasons, but one of them being there's a lot of doom and gloom coming out there about this. It's anyway, I see a lot of astrologers talking about, when Uranus goes into Gemini, that's when we always had these wars. And while they're not wrong, I would also like to say that this is a different time. It's a different energy signature. We're in this age of Aquarius. Those wars all happened in the age of Pisces. Um, and so it's important that we remember all these things before we keep trying to put the same energy signature with these planets, which I think the planets, energy signature of the planets are changing because we're changing. They are vibrating higher, which is causing us to vibrate higher. And again, this is what I believe. If this does not resonate with you, that's cool. Find what does. Okay. Um, so Uranus is at 0 degrees of Gemini. Uranus rules Aquarius. Okay, it's its modern ruler. Aquarius's ancient ruler is Saturn, which is over here in Aries. Saturn now rules Capricorn. Okay, so when we find new things out about the universe, we change these planets around, okay? That also helps them take on a new energy. At the same time, when we move into a new cycle, like a new age, and out of an old cycle, like if you go and look at the Kali Yuga cycle, you guys go look at that. Those are also huge energy signatures that change things around. Okay. So Uranus, who rules Aquarius, Aquarius is fixed air. Aquarius rules the cosmos. Uranus went into Taurus. Where is Taurus? Oh, it's by my shoulder. No, it's right here. Went into Taurus. It was in Taurus for 7 to 8-ish years because you've got to remember these planets go in, they retrograde, they move back and forth, they go over degrees. Pluto, who's at 5 degrees, is going to get ready to move retrograde on May 9th. Okay. So that's a big energy signature. When planets, pause and go back, that creates a lot of energy. So just write that down. And then when they pause to go forward, creates a lot of energy. So, write that down. So, um, Pluto will be retrograde from May to October, May 9th to sometime in October, early October. And so that's going to go over, Pluto's going to go over, these degrees. And to me, I know it's a little bit of a digression, but when these planets stop and go retrograde, to me, it's always like when you're leaving the house and then you get in the car and you turn the car on, you go, oh, I forgot something. And then you got to get out of the car and go back in and get your shit and then get back in the car and then get moving. That's that energy of that retrograde of, okay, you were on your way to go do something, you could see it, but then you're like, oh God, like I forgot my lunch, I forgot my coffee, I forgot my whatever, okay? And then you got to go in and get your stuff, right? You got to go back. Uh, and so when the planets go retrograde, okay, they got to go back because they forgot some stuff and they need to make sure they have all their things before they can move forward. So we're going to be going over some of these themes that we've been going over in these first 5 degrees of Aquarius. Now, Aquarius does rule technology. So Aquarius is very thought of when we think of like AI. Okay. And so what's interesting is that um, on May 9th, and it goes back, we're going to start going over what we're doing with AI. Okay. Uranus moving into Gemini. Gemini is mutable air. So you have a fixed air ruler going into mutable air. So there's right there, there's some camaraderie. Okay, so they kind of both know how they think. Um, Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is how we communicate. So, all these planets are important. All these signs are important. Okay, so with Uranus going into Gemini, I can understand why people would think this is the rise of the robots. Okay. Mm. Okay. But we have to remember Gemini is the twins, Pollux and Castor. A lot of people see Gemini as duality, um, light and dark, yin and yang, all those things as well, right? Because it's two. So we also have to bring in the idea or the possibility that Uranus moving into Gemini is going to disrupt the idea that we're all going to be taken over by robots. Okay? Um, because Uranus is the disruptor. And if that is, the train of thought that we're on, we're all going to be taken over. Um, this is what's going to happen. Uranus comes in to disrupt that. That's why Uranus is thought of as the Tower card in the Tarot. It's that lightning that comes out of nowhere. It's that aha moment. It is the revolution. Um, I always say that, right? I always say, oh, I should have pulled that card. So hold on, let me see if I can find it. Um, so I'm going to pull some of these. So, you know, in the tarot when it's what do you call it, the tower card? Oh, it's right here. Oh wait, I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to see it because of this background. Oop, I'm gonna put it in front of my face. Okay, so you can see the tower card. And it's that idea so of that lightning strike coming out is Uranus, and what it does is it hits the tower. So all the places that we felt like this is the way that it's going to go, this is what keeps us quote unquote safe, all the ways it keeps us stuck, right, in the freaking tower, um, it creates it starts to unravel that, right? And it kind of comes out of nowhere, right? That's why Uranus is so dynamic. That's why Aquarius is so dynamic. But we have to remember it's fixed, right? It is that there's still some idea, this idea that there's still some idea of boundaries, right? Because it used to be ruled by Saturn, and Saturn likes boundaries. Um, in Aquarius right now is Juno, which is also time. So this idea of redoing time. And Pluto, right, which is death and transformation. But Pluto rules Scorpio. And again, it's that fixed energy. Okay. So if there were other energy signatures where it was a lot of mutable energy, I would be a little more concerned about quote unquote terrible things happening and continuing to happen. Um, but with Uranus moving into Gemini, things will be dynamic, things will happen fast, things will happen out of the blue. Um, you know, and I will say this too, and this is just speaking because I am in this industry, if you will, but also just working with planets, working with tarot, working with energy. Trying to predict what Uranus is going to do isn't a safe bet. Okay, it's just not. Whenever Uranus is involved, um, it's going to come out of the blue. And, we can say, oh, I probably thought this, I probably thought that. But the one thing I can say you can bet on is that it's going to come out of the blue. And you're like, "Oh, okay." Um and not in a bad way. Okay? Not in a bad way. When the tower falls, that's always a good thing. But the idea is like, "Oh, right, it's that shock, right? Shock because we really thought we were going down one path. And if you think you're going to go down a path of doom and gloom, that's not what Uranus is here for. It's here to balance things. So if you're like, hey, James, I feel like right now my life's pretty good and I'm going down a good path, you can keep going down that good path. Uranus is going to come in and shake things up so you can keep that good path going. Okay. Because there is that idea of balance with Gemini, and I will say this too, because Uranus rules Aquarius, it is about the community, okay? The community at large, okay? So if you're in the individual first and then the community. So if you're like, well, if it's, if you're basically if you're being a pretty good person and you're helping out yourself and you're helping out others, you're not going to have that much to freaking worry about. Um, you know, because morally you have some sort of moral compass. And this isn't about, you know, you know, saying something, getting out something, ignoring people, it's okay. If you, yeah, that looks good, even if you don't think it looks good, but your friend loves it, you're like, yeah, it looks great, because you love that they're happy, that's okay. That's not this idea, then this is going to happen to you. This is the idea of like having a surveillance state that does not help communities. Okay. Uranus coming out of nowhere and blowing it up. Okay. This is the idea of not having any regulation on AI, just doing whatever you want. Uranus coming in there and blowing that up. Okay. Because it is this idea of having a different conversation, right? Gemini ruled by Mercury about what is good for the collective. Okay. And if one thing isn't good for the collective, it's not going to stick with Uranus and Gemini. Okay. I hope this is making sense. Okay. This isn't the rise of authoritarianism. This would be the end of that, quite honestly. Okay. And we've got to go back. Everyone was, flipping their shit about all the, planets in Aries, right? Which is helping move that through. This to me, okay, and this happening over here, if you want to put a masculine-ish, I don't even want to say that. Let's take that back. Let's rewind that. If you want to put an Aries spin on it, this is the rise of courage. This is the rise of speaking up in mass. Okay. This isn't the rise of the robots. This isn't the rise of a few. Okay. This is this is the dismantling of that. Okay. And, again, when people say, well, the last time Uranus was in Gemini, there was wars, okay, they're not wrong, right? You can go back and look on the um ephemeral charts and see, yep, that's what it was. But we were in a different age. We were in a different vibration, okay? We were in a different we were in a different we were in that age of Pisces, right? Which was still under the influence of that age of Aries, okay? And Aries and Mars were still under that old story of being warriors, and now if I see them as spiritual warriors, they've got this idea of accountability with them. Because you have to remember who's leading the charge is Venus, okay? Venus rules Taurus, all right? So when Uranus first moved into Taurus, okay, who is ruled by Venus, that is when that Me Too movement took off, okay, and was everywhere. Okay, that's when it was like, whoa, whoa, hey, this isn't imbalance anymore. This isn't the energy we're going to be in anymore, right? Uranus met Taurus. They gave each other a huggy poo. Okay, we're going to do this together for the next 7 to 8-ish years, right? And it dismantled. I mean, that was the taking down, and it's been chipping away for thousands of years. But this was in like modern times the biggest chipping away of patriarchal values. Okay. And you can say, well, great. Now we have this person in the White House who's really doing his best to get us not only back there, but way back there, right? Um, and that's just how it's got to be right now in order to keep us moving forward, okay? Because when you start to see it in all forms, right? Patriarchal values, and how that top-down power and how it's not good for anyone but a select few. And this is being played out in every sector, Okay. And before the way they spoke about it, and you have to remember this is being spoken like this for 5,000 years, you guys. This wasn't like, oh, a branding campaign since the 1960s, it's been for thousands and thousands of years. Okay. Um, and the way that starts to fall away quickly is you move into a new age, the age of Aquarius, and Uranus starts to go in there and starts doing its thing. Okay, so the way they would talk about it, and you would just be like, that doesn't sound right, but we just went with it because it was modeled for so long. Okay, well, Taurus, Uranus and Taurus shook up all those models. Okay, and now Uranus and Gemini is going to start this new conversation. Okay, because you can't, and you've got to remember, they might try to keep spinning it like, no, it's supposed to be like this way. But there's things within us, okay, that we're going back into the way we feel, okay? Neptune in Aries, only at 3 degrees, okay? Aries, that I am presence, Neptune, okay? Um, Spirituality, right? Are what's unconscious coming to the conscious. Okay, oh, this is kind of what I've been thinking about. This is what's been modeled to me. I didn't even notice. Do I like that anymore? Um, how can I change this? Okay, Saturn, right? Giving you a blueprint. Okay, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. This is how we can change this, right? And Mars, who's in his home sign of Aries, is still conjunct Saturn, okay? And in his final, I mean, not final like forever, but is 10 degrees out of Neptune, so it's still conjunct. So they're still having this kind of a deep conversation. Mars is conjunct Neptune. When the planets are conjunct, it means they're 10 degrees or closer. Okay, so that's why we could say an exact conjunction. So like conjunct, conjunct over here, conjunct, right? Um, so that just means they're having an intense conversation. So, Mars wants us to move forward. Mars understands like it's got to have a reason. There's got to be something about it that wants to, why do I want to do this? Where's the accountability? How can I think about this differently? Who am I now? How do I communicate how it's different now, right? But also understanding with all this Piscean energy, moving forward, it's okay to feel differently. Okay, the feeling differently is there. The way that we express it within ourselves is there. It's not just slash and burn. Okay, it's really like, oh, we've got to have a higher perspective of how we move through this planet. Okay, how we see that and feel that within ourselves, right? Um, and so this signature, having courage, speaking up differently, right? Mars in conjunct Gemini, Mercury, sorry. Having courage with this, speaking up differently, that I am presence. I am not going to put up with this shit. I am not losing my job to a robot. I am not giving you consent just because I sign up for an app. Okay. And this is us speaking up about that. The difference being, okay, it's not this, it is on one hand the singular I am, right? That's still that Aquarius theme, the individual, okay? But then it goes into the collective, right? Gemini and Aquarius. Okay, this isn't good for everybody. So this is going to start to get a little bit dismantly. Okay. We are going to speak about this differently. We are going to feel good about how we speak about this. Okay. We're going to understand it's okay if we're all okay, because at the end of the day, you guys, look, first we need obviously like better policies for things. Okay. And this is just me. I believe if everyone had a fair shake at everything, everything was fair starting off, everyone had The same, like a good education, everyone could read at a, 12th grade level. Um, Everyone made a living wage. Okay, we still have free will. So how far we're going to take that really still is up to us. Some people will still succeed in different ways than others. Okay. Um, Even if we all started out and had the same opportunities. Okay, because we're people and what we like and um, what inspires us and what we want to experience on Earth at this time is going to be different. Um, and so getting us out of that, out of things that aren't equal, okay, that is to me Uranus and Gemini. All right. Um, Getting more into that balance of feminine energies with the masculine energies, right? That realignment. Uranus in Gemini, okay, not having those huge swings. The idea of Gemini is, gathering the facts. Okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? And then making your best, most informed decision, okay, and moving with that. Okay, well, that's going to start blowing up the places where we're not being informed, okay, in a lot of things. And look, at the end of the day, there's just going to be some people who don't want to be informed. And the algorithms keep things moving, so we keep getting the same thing. Um, so to keep enforcing what it is that we already believe. But we're also understanding that now, like, of course, this algorithm keeps showing me this shit, but we can go and get informed. We can still go talk to our neighbors. We can still go to um, rallies. We can still go to different things, right? We can still learn. We can still travel. Um, and this is going to start, you know, like freedom of press. What happened in the United States right when this moved in, okay? It shut down. Well, there was an incident that shut down the biggest night that honors the freedom of the press. Okay? That's one side of this. Okay, what's the other side? How are you going to quote unquote combat that? Okay? What is the way that we get the word out that whatever was supposed to happen at that correspondence dinner, whoever was supposed to be honored and why, how will that get out there differently? Because Uranus also going into Gemini, who is conjunct Sedna and Venus, this is all about receiving, right? Those feminine energies and the way that we read them now is about receiving, the masculine energy is about moving, okay? So this is going to be how do we receive our information moving forward, okay? But also, are we allowing ourselves to receive just in general? Or are we going to stay in the old paradigm of, working for peanuts, not, they get to receive all this stuff. They're the benefactors of my hard work. I don't get anything. Okay. Are you going to stay in that, or are you going to do the other and be like, okay, I receive. I allow myself to receive. I'm okay with receiving. Um it is just going to be blowing open that whole old paradigm of top-down power. Aries, the energy of Aries is working with this right now. You can see Pluto, okay, who is trining Venus in Sedna, okay, right now, right there. Whoop. Um, and Pluto trining them, right, is ending that old way, okay, of not receiving, for lack of a better word, like not listening to the feminine, right? Not listening to the feminine, not ignoring her wisdom, right? This and when I talk about that feminine wisdom, it's within all of us. That is your gut speaking to you. That is you, even if they're really telling you something and you got all and they're showing you and you're just like, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's what's happening. Trusting that and being okay with that and making your own decisions, right? That is Mars, Saturn, and Pisces. If you're lower Pisces, it's staying in that illusion of, I don't know, I guess this is it, addiction. Higher Pisces is like, nope, we're done with that. I trust myself. It's okay when these things come and I'm like, oh God, I was wrong about that. All right, well, let me move forward. Let me get this new information. That's all happening right now. Um, Eris is still conjunct Chiron, right? This is that discord, which is going to be, it's been here for a while. They've been talking to each other for a while. But the idea is with this, trusting the self. What do you believe now? Okay. What are some maybe bitter pills you've got to swallow in order to move yourself forward, in order to live in a more harmonious society? Okay, because those lower vibes of Aries, war, is it doesn't fit with anyone anymore. And you can be like, it fits with some people, yeah, but it's not en masse. It's not the collective. It's not what's best for the community. It's not what's best for the individual. And that storyline isn't going to go away as this keeps moving forward. It's going to come more to the front because you have Venus, right? She's leading the charge in all of this. Venus is getting us back to get realigned. Authenticity, everyone's favorite word. You got to be authentic, right? And that's really playing out here because, let's see, Black Moon Lilith, who is in Scorpio, was trining Jupiter. Hold on, I thought she was doing something else. Well, Black Moon Lilith is in this huge water trine with Jupiter, who's in Cancer, and Vesta, who's in Pisces, right? So again, that grand water trine, okay. Um, Uranus being conjunct Venus and Sedna, okay. Sedna is also works with water, and then Sedna and Venus trining Pluto, okay. Pluto is sextiling Pisces, and Saturn. All that water energy, that's behind the scenes, friends. That's behind the scenes work. Okay. That is us getting back in alignment. That is trusting ourselves. That is, mm, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me energy. Okay. This is having that courage to be okay with changing, having that courage to being okay with speaking differently about things, having that courage to speak up and speak out about things. Okay. It's here. It's not going anywhere. Uranus and Gemini next 7 years. Okay. But it's more potential, right, of good things happening. Okay. If you're sitting there and you're stressed out and you're like, everything sucks, okay, well, Uranus is going to come in there and make sure it can't suck. Okay. It can't benefit just one group of people anymore. Okay. Because we're in this age of Aquarius. If you guys don't remember anything about this, just remember we're in this age of Aquarius. Aquarius is about the individual and the collective, but in those higher vibes. Okay, so don't stress out about Uranus in Gemini. See what starts coming in for you differently, how you're communicating to yourself differently, how you're getting your information differently. Um, you know, trusting yourself more than maybe what's trying to be fed for you right now. Okay, because the story about Uranus and Gemini is going to keep changing and progressing the next 7 years. So I don't want you guys to be stressed. I would like for you guys to see this as courage rising because it's still working with the stellium in Aries. It's still Uranus rules Aquarius. Pluto's not going anywhere, right, in Aquarius. So it is about ending all those old ways for the next 20 years, 18 years. And the final thing I'm going to say and get out of here is this conjunction of Juno and Pluto. Juno does rule relationships. Um, and so this idea of how relationships are changing. This is the idea how we see ourselves in relationships and how those roles are changing. And that's okay, right? She also rules time, and it's time to change this. It's time to, you know, rewrite. I hate to say like women's role and men's roles, but I mean that's kind of where we are, for lack of a better word. Um, but what it means to be in relationship with the other and how that works for us now in this day and age. Okay. So lots of movement, lots of things changing. Um, you know, the idea too of being okay with change, okay, but also understanding that um, individually how this affects you isn't going to be maybe the same way how it affects everybody. There is going to be some communal change, obviously, because we're in this age of Aquarius, but also being okay when you get that aha moment and working with it in order to make you feel more grounded, you more aligned, and you more authentic. Okay, friends, I'm going to leave it there. I'll be back in a couple days because we're going to have this full moon here on May 1st. If you have any questions, just reach out. You can get in touch with me on Instagram at Independent ST Nola or my website, Independent ST Nola or ST Tarot. So thank you for joining me with this talk. These are good things, you guys. The planets are really here to support us moving forward. The old way of thinking is like they're always punishing us. And that's not why we're here on Earth, to be punished, even though sometimes it feels like that. But it is here to, they're here to help us, right? Look up, see that there's more, understand we are that conduit of as above, so below, moving together in that infinity loop, right? We all work together. So, um, big times, big energies, big fun. It can be here too. So, all right, I'll see you guys soon.